Good morning, one and all. Welcome to the Day 2 of Faculty Development Program on Cybersecurity in Smart Cities. On behalf of the Department of Computer Application, it is my privilege and pleasure to welcome Dr. M. Sarosh Umar, Professor of Department of Computer Engineering, Aligarh Muslim University, Uttar Pradesh, in this session to deliver an expert lecture on the challenges and best practices for secure user authentication in digital age. Professor Umar has teaching and research and industrial experience of more than 31 years in India as well as abroad. He has been a resource person at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration years and has trained Indian administrative services officers at various orientation and training programs in the area of e-governance. He has been a member of expert committee of All India Council for Technical Education, NAC, as well as National Board of Accreditation. Professor Umar has served as Chairman, Department of Computer Engineering, Aligarh Muslim University for 6 years during 1999 to 2002, 2015 to 2018, and is presently serving his third term. He has also been a resource person at University Grants Commission Academic Staff College. He has delivered more than 50 invited talks in the areas of information technology, e-governance, e-commerce, security, software engineering, and virtual reality. He has various articles and research papers to his credit, and he has presented papers and delivered invited talks in Canada, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, France, and several states of northeast of India, including Sikkim, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Nagaland. His research interests are user authentication using graphical methods, computer security, and software engineering, and he has published 3 patents. Now, I invite Professor Umar sir to deliver his lecture. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mo. I'm going to share. I hope the presentation is visible to all of you.
No, sir, the slides are still not visible.
Okay.
Now it's visible.
I hope the complete screen is visible to all of you.
So yes, sir, it's visible. It's visible.
Thank you. So it's indeed a proud privilege for me to address this gathering at a very relevant FDP in the area of cybersecurity issues in smart cities. So I'm really thankful to the organizers and especially the coordinator for giving me the opportunity to deliver this session. I also have this privilege of participating as an expert in the development of Aligarh Smart City. In fact, we are really grateful to the government that a number of smart cities are now coming up, and we are fast moving towards an era where we are going to deal with smart societies. So in this era, a lot of issues are there, and we need to understand these issues and address them appropriately and in time. So a proactive strategy is the best thing to handle such issues. So today's session shall be in the area of user authentication. So we are going to discuss something about the challenges which are there and what should be adopted to handle this crucial issue of user authentication. I was going through some data from the past, and I observed that quite huge amount of losses were occurring just because of this identity theft. And you can all see the data, the figures, they are really burgeoning. In 2003, what was just 1.2 billion, it became $3.2 billion. Then 2009, 4.7 billion. Then again, it increased drastically to $21 billion by the end of 2015. And if you look at the figures of our country also, the problems are there. And the problems are really quite grave. 1.24 trillion is the figure which I found. And when we look at the global scenario, just last year in 2020, the estimated losses are running into the tunes of $100 billion. Just for the US, the figures are around $56 billion. And all this is happening just because of certain people who are there, who are working and trying to siphon off your hard-earned money. And now we all know that we are facing this COVID pandemic, and there are people who found opportunity in these disastrous times to again dupe the people, and ultimately it proved to be a very fertile ground for such scrupulous peoples. So identity theft is one of the major problems that the world is facing at present. And you can see for yourself, the number of identity theft reports are increasing quite rapidly. In 2018, the rise was just 20% over the previous years. Next year, 2019, it jumped by 46%. And then last year, a jump of more than 100% was observed. So this is what the scenario is. There are people who are really quite keen, quite adamant to just resort to these means. So this is certainly a very crucial time where we need to understand what are the problems that are there and how and in what better way we should be able to contain these problems. Because once we go for these smart cities, everything is going to become smart. I was involved in ICCC, that is Integrated Command and Control Center, and then we could see that there are areas where all the citizens will be covered, even those who have not great literacy level, yet we would like to encompass them and give them the fruits of smart governance. So in that scenario, when the people are not so literate or they are not so functionally literate, we have to provide means of all these facilities of smart governance to them, and also to ensure that they remain safe and secure. And the problem is grave, as we can see, that these are the US figures. What to talk of the figures in India? In the last 12 months, the figure is 27 million Indians. They underwent this identity theft. So quite a huge figure is there. And certainly, such to increase unless and until they are checked in time. And how these are occurring? How such problems are occurring? There are various methods. You come up with some solution, and there will be people who will be able to circumvent and bypass those solutions. So what we find that most of the losses which are occurring, they are being done through just hacking of your passwords. Your identity is being stolen through the means which are being called as phishing. We all know what phishing is, social engineering. Phishing is also a term which is now being used. That is, you get some voice calls and you answer to those voice calls and start divulging your details. Sometimes just brute force attacks are there. Guesswork is there. So many methods are there through which your identity can be stolen. So very easily the password can be hacked. So in such a scenario, we need to be very cautious. And we need to adopt means through which we are able to handle the problems. In fact, if we look at the overall global scenario, what these scrupulous people are doing. We all know that crime has been there since time immemorial. It has been there right from the ages when the history got written. I even read that Ibn Battuta, when he was touring India, when he was passing through Aligarh and Mathura, he got attacked by some of these thugs, and all his goods were stolen. So such things have been happening. This is nothing new. Right from the advent of mankind, the problems have been quite severe. So we find that human trafficking, slavery, illegal weapons, drugs, all such traditional crime has been there since time immemorial. And now with the advent of this digital era, the advent of the electronic network, we find that some of the crimes which are being conducted through offline means, they have now just transformed into the era of into the domain of electronics. So be it the theft, it may be fraud, it may be information theft, it can be related to software piracy, industrial espionage. So many areas are there through which this electronic network is being used to dupe the people, to defraud them. You have heard of these fee scams. In fact, when I was a child, I could see that we used to get those postal mails, envelopes from abroad. And when you open those envelopes, you found that okay, you had the some congratulatory letter that you have backed so many millions of reward for doing something, or maybe you have inherited. All this is happening now also. What I'm talking about is just 40 years ago. And today we find our emails are just spammed. So many mails are being received. So many phone calls are being received. So Nigerian fee fraud is something which is now being adopted all over the world. This was a name which was given by, that is Nigerian fee fraud is something which is related to those scams. Now people are becoming aware. They know what's happening. And very few people do fall prey. But again, when I say few, the figures are not that little. So problems are there. This is something we all know. And another thing that we observe in the past 2.5 decades is the rise of this very smart gadget in your pockets, the rise of mobile phones. And again, when I went through the data, I found that what was a figure of just 500 millions 2 decades back, it has started increasing rapidly. And December 2015, 6 years ago, the number of mobile phones crossed the total world population. And just this today morning, I was going through what exactly the world population is, and I find it is more than 7.7 billion, 7.769, and figure it is rising very rapidly. On daily basis, you can check, and the figure keeps on increasing. So certain things are happening. Crime is there. Facilities are being made available. Everybody has got access to mobile phones. The world population is rising. And these are all interlinked. You will find a relationship. The number of phones are at present around 15 billion. And this is a figure which I obtained from Statista. And we all see that the number of mobile phones is increasing. And likewise, the number of smartphones, that too has started increasing very rapidly. And the reason is quite obvious. What used to cost more than 100,000 a few years back, all the technology is available at the cost of, let's say, 10,000. So more and more people have got access to the smartphone, and they are using a smartphone in a big way. Phones are not being used more for making voice calls. Rather, there are other activities which are being carried out on the phones. So this is the scenario that we are dealing with. The number of mobile phones, smartphones at present is estimated to be around 3.8 billion. That is half of the world population. And if you look at the figure of how the world population is rising, just before 1800 century, you will find that 18th century, you will find that the population remained below 1 billion throughout the various centuries. But then thanks to industrial revolution and advancement in healthcare and lots of other parameters also there, which helped in the explosion in the population, world population. So we are saying that by 2050, we are going to reach 9 billion if we do not go for any checks and balances. So what we are observing is certain interlinked phenomena which is happening. And all this population is going to become smart in the days to come. We are going to have smart cities right here in India and abroad also. We know how fast all it is moving. So when I was talking about mobile phone, we know that basically now has got great impact. It's a means of social transformation. Everybody has got access to technology right in their palms. And once you have got the technology in your hand, you start using it for various activities, for various services. And one of the major areas where we are using mobile phones is in financial transactions. So this basically foray of mobile phones into the arena of world banking and finance, that has really startled us toes to ensure that all the transactions that we carry out, those should obviously remain secure, and only the rightful owner should be able to access the desired service. So that is the key, the term that we all know we are also moving towards cashless society. And this pandemic also has helped in a big way. That is, we find that more and more people are now adopting to cashless transactions. We avoid the currency these days, especially. So that is one thing. But again, the governments are also keen, and so many advantages are there once we go for cashless transactions. So easy tracking will be there. So many issues are there. The point is that we are heading towards cashless transactions, and how are we going to do it? Through the mobile access that we have. So we have to ensure that we need to have secure, robust, and very reliable means of authentication. So that is the scenario that we are living in right now, and that's what we are going to discuss today. Well, it's just an interesting episode that I encountered while going through this historical book of memoirs of Babar Nama. So it's just a story that Babar was moving with his troop from Andijan towards Aush. There was an area in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. That's the area that I'm talking about. Now, the episode that they mentioned is that one of the troops of the army, it headed towards a village which was near Aush, and of goods. When it was there, then in the night, a section of the main army that also headed towards that village. Now it was so that during the battles and during the movement of the troops, what they have mentioned is that they used to have a password. You see, they didn't used to have any uniform, or that is, it was very difficult to recognize just by looking at a person. So they used to have a password while they were in the battlefield or while they were moving the troops. That night, the password was that if you give Tashkent, if you uttered Tashkent, then the other person has to say Saram. Likewise, if you say Saram, the other person had to say Tashkent, just to avoid with your friends or whether the other person is the enemy. Now, what happened when this section of army moved towards that village? The people who were already there on the troop, they just got surprised and they just checked for the password. That is, they gave the password. Now, the commander of this Mughal army, who was at the head, he was asked Tashkent, and then the person got confused. He uttered Tashkent. Then the other person, he said Saram, and again this man, the commander of the troop, again said Saram. Now, this was a very serious issue then. The troop which was there plundering the village, it got really very much scared, and it started beating drums and raising war cries, started pouring arrows, and ultimately lots of chaos was there, and the whole army got scattered. So this was a very interesting phenomena which I read, that 500 years ago they were using passwords. And when you further go into the history, the Greek and Roman armies also, they used to use passwords. It's all recorded nights and all those. You must have read about Ali Baba and 40 Thieves, that is, he forgot the password. So ultimately we find that password is something really very important. It is being used since ages. So when we talk of, the point comes that of authentication. That is, basically we are trying to authenticate a person. And what is meant by authentication? It's basically the act of confirming the truth of any datum or any entity. That is, basically we are talking about confirming the identity of what? It may be a person, it can be an object, it can be a software program, it can be a very precious historical artifact. Basically what we are going to do is we are going to ensure that whatever the package, the labeling is saying, that indeed is true or not. That is, whatever it is claiming to be, it is indeed the same entity or not. So it can be a person or it can be any other object also. You can also say that authentication is nothing but positive verification of identity of maybe man or an object, a machine. Verification of person's claimed identity. That is, I'm repeating all these things because we need to understand what authentication is. Basically, we are going to verify what a person is claiming himself to be. In fact, when we're talking about user authentication, then we are pertaining to the human aspect. That's if a person is claiming to be someone, then we need to verify whether that person is indeed the one that he's claiming to be. How do we do that? The method has been there again for long. Who you are, prove it. And how do you do it? You can do it in three ways. Either you convey some information, that is what you know. You have something in your mind, and when you convey that, you are authenticated. That is, the other party gets to know, okay, this is who you are because you carry that information in your head, in your brain. So that is one way, knowledge-based authentication. The other thing is, you have something in your possession. You carry something. Now what you can carry? It can be anything. It can be a document, it can be a card, it can be a passport, it can be a ration. So many means of documents are possible which can prove who you are. That you carry something in your possession. This is also sometimes called as a token-based authentication. And the third thing is who you are, how the other person sees you. Basically, that is how you look like. Maybe somebody recognizes just by looking at your face. You know, okay, this is Sarosh Umar. Or just by listening to your voice. Or if you are more technical savvy, then maybe you can gather the fingerprint and then you can analyze the fingerprint. So the third possibility is the biometrics, the physical and behavioral traits that a human being possesses. Through that we can identify. So basically there are three ways through which a person will be authenticated. That's a user authentication can be carried out. Knowledge based, token based, or basically biometrics. Now so far as what you know, you carry some information in your mind. And I already mentioned the episode of that army. So password is something that is being used since ages, and now in this era of computers also, right from the beginning, when the computers were invented, people went in for username and passwords because they had to secure information. So password is something which you can carry in your mind, or it can be a passphrase. I'll talk about passphrase later on, because you have got a phrase rather than just a word. Or it can be personal identification number or anything that you know. That is, these are the three main entities that normally we use for authenticating ourselves, either offline or online. Now, when we talk of carrying something in your pocket or you are in possession of something, so that can be a documentary proof. It can be any document. So many documents are acceptable these days and long time back also. When you're traveling across countries, who you are, they don't care about it. You just need to carry your passport. Of course, it must be properly stamped. So passport is something which tells the other person, okay, this is who you are. It can be birth certificate, it can be a driver's license, and your ID card, your university ID card, it can be voter's ID card, and now we all know what Aadhaar is. We were in that team when we were working in the IS Academy, Missouri, that we wanted to have some unique identification means for all the citizens of the country. And then it was developed a concept that, okay, everyone should be having a particular social security number kind of a thing and a smart card. So whatever work that was done 2 decades back ultimately resulted in this a unique identity card of every citizen of the country. There's the Aadhaar card. Likewise, PAN card, ration card. So many documents are possible, so many cards are possible, which will ultimately help improving who you are. And sometimes we find that some of the documents that I mentioned here, they cannot be used online on the net. You need to have some other way of entering the information which is available in these documents in order to authenticate yourself on the network. So, and we all know that all these documents help improving who you are. That is, we are dependent upon a card, token, or just a piece of paper to prove your identity. There can be digital authentication also. There will be some devices like you can have the smart card, your credit card, your ATM card, e-token. All these are basically examples of the possession. That is what you possess in order to prove who you are. Now it's another story that somebody else can steal these documents, and maybe that's what we're talking about. That's what the issue is. And e-tokens can be nothing but a USB key fob, and it can be used online or perhaps offline also. And data is protected on the device. Lots of modern banks use this. In fact, when I was in Canada as well as abroad, I could see that some of the banks used to provide you a key fob. And every day when you look at the key fob, you will find then some sequence of digits, and it kept on changing. So when you're logging in and you're for availing some service on the bank, you give your username, you give your password, and then it asks for the passcode. Now that code had to be obtained from the key fob that you carry in your pocket. So just glance it, see what is there, and then you authenticate yourself. So that was one method. It's similar to OTP that's being used today because everybody has got the mobile phone. So you get the OTP, or you can be just a USB drive which could be inserted in the system, so you can authenticate yourself. So smart cards can have just some unique code, or it can be some microprocessor based, where there is a facility for some carrying out some computations also. And moreover, these can be contactless, or those ones which require some physical contact with the reader. So different types of cards are possible, and all these are being used. And when you see your ATM card also, you'll find that there's a chip. So processing is also there. It's just not plain memory which is used in these smart cards. Another very interesting technology which has gained importance in the recent times, not very recent times, a decade or so, RFID, radio frequency identification. Now this technology, I'm sure you're all from the technology side, so you are aware of what this RFID is, which basically comprises a chip which contains some unique code, and then you have got a reader which senses this unique information in this chip wirelessly. So it's basically a mechanism through which the information is read to the communication of antenna, and whatever is the unique code that is read by the reader. So this is a very simple technology which has been there for long. In fact, it was there in World War. The ships used to have this RFID technology. Of course, the gadgets were pretty big. Now we have got just chips in which the unique code is there. So we call that as the RFID tag, and it can be stuck to any place. So these can be either passive tags which do not require any energy, or they can be active tags which do have got a battery energy source are there, and they can be sensed wirelessly over a distance of few meters. Normally we have to have the tag in the vicinity of the reader in order to read the information. That is a technology which is being used in lots of areas these days. So RFID based cards can be used to establish your identity. So you just need to carry this RFID card in your person, and you know how FASTag is working for in fact this technology that is for collection of toll tax. The cars have got this tag, and here in India we find that we have got the barrier where we have to stop, and ultimately we have to that tag has got to be read in order to move. There are countries where no barrier is there, like in Dubai they have got a mechanism which is called as salik. So the cars can move at high speeds, 100, 120 kilometers per hour, just through a gate, and RFID readers are there which read the tag which is stuck on your windshield. And if the tag has expired or you don't have amount in that, so there's always a possibility that there will be cameras which will capture the photograph of the car if there is no tag, and then the car can be penalized heavily. So the idea is that there's a seamless movement of the traffic without stopping, and the toll gets collected. So that's a very interesting one of the applications. Likewise, there are other applications of RFID also. Now, since we are talking about RFID, I'll just devote one more minute to what this technology, that is, what can be the various applications. We find that in malls, basically RFID is being used for securing the items. But there are certain smart malls also, smart departmental stores, where instead of the barcode, all the items in that store are tagged with RFID chips, and each chip has got a unique code. That means every item in that store, there can be thousands and thousands of items. Every item gets that's tagged with this RFID chip. A person can just keep on when you're going to shopping that mall. You just collect the items, put them in the trolley, and move towards point of sale. Now, at point of sale, you don't have to stop. You just pass your trolley through a gate, and all the items in your trolley, they can be hundreds of items or maybe just 5 items, they are read wirelessly without any person picking one by one the items and reading them like we do for barcode. So all the items, hundreds of items are read in a jiffy. Information is collected, the bill is prepared, and if you have got RFID enabled credit card or the ADM card in your pocket, then the same amount can be deducted automatically. So you don't have to stop. You just pass through that point of sale gate and go outside, and that's what is being thought of. It's being tried. You can check for Metro Group in Germany. They have got this mechanism through which you see on weekends there are so many points of sales, 50 or 100 points of sales are there, and there's a rush of people. So all that rush can be eliminated through the use of this technology, which is called as RFID. In Middle East also, there are shops which have got those gold suits are there. And I didn't have any idea that how many items are there in any jewelry shop. When I went there and I observed, we found that there are around 500,000 individual gold items in that jewelry store. And it is very difficult for those owners to manage the inventory and to just check the inventory, because so many items are there and they start checking one by one. It will take several weeks just to know what your inventory is. And that's what happened, that when they check their inventory, they find that they have got losses running into few kgs of kilograms of jewelry which is lost. So that's the reality which is happening. So what now they are doing is they are tagging each and every item, fresh RFID tags, very small RFID tags are there, and every individual jewelry piece is tagged. And then they have got readers placed in the showcases as well as everywhere in the showroom possible. In fact, at AMI also, we have got the student